struck one of Russia's top oil refineries. Moscow launched multiple attacks across Ukraine, injuring several.
Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has called for Israel to receive similar treatment to Russia and be banned from international sporting events.
A day after Kyiv struck one of Russia's top oil refineries, Moscow launched several attacks across Ukraine, according to local media. 4 firefighters that were tackling a blaze were injured and taken to the hospital after they were targeted by a Russian drone attack in the Chernihiv region. Meanwhile, in the Sumy region, at least 12 people were injured, one of whom is in critical condition when missiles struck an agricultural field. Another 9 people were wounded in Kramatorsk in the Donetsk region after Russia struck the city center with 3 guided bombs.
Найбільш ефективні санкції, які діють найшвидше, це вогонь на російських нафтових заводах, на їхніх терміналах, нафтобазах. Суттєво обмежили російську нафтову галузь, і це суттєво обмежує війну.
A day prior, Ukraine struck one of Russia's largest oil facilities. Several media reported oil prices rose on Monday as a result of the attack. On Sunday, U.S. President Donald Trump had also called on NATO allies to stop purchasing Russian oil and claimed it weakened the alliance's negotiating position.
Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez called for Israel to be banned from international sporting events on Monday. Tensions between Spain and Israel have soared in recent weeks as Sanchez's left-wing government grew increasingly vocal against Israel in its conduct of war in Gaza. Speaking to members of his Socialist Party, the Spanish premier said Israel, just like Russia, should be excluded from international competitions. The Spanish leader stressed that it's important to practice uniformity in stance against aggressors, no matter who they are.
Y creo que las organizaciones deportivas deben plantearse si es ético que Israel siga participando en competiciones internacionales. ¿Por qué se expulsó a Rusia tras la invasión de Ucrania y no se expulsa a Israel tras la invasión de Gaza? Nuestra posición es clara y rotunda y además creo que la comparte una inmensa mayoría de la ciudadanía. Da igual lo que voten, voten izquierda, derecha, centro, da igual. Porque están en el sentido común, están en la defensa de los derechos humanos y el derecho internacional que está siendo menoscabado por Rusia y por Israel.
The statement comes just one day after pro-Palestine protesters caused the final stage of the Vuelta cycling race to be abandoned. Protesters were opposing the participation of an Israeli team at the event, while their government continues to carry out atrocities in Gaza. On Sunday, Sanchez expressed support for the protesters, who crashed the event at various points across the last 3 weeks. The Spanish leader, speaking at an event, noted that it's important to stand behind and admire those who support just causes such as Palestine. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu defended Israel's planned expanded operations in Gaza, as well as the controversial strikes on Qatar, as he spoke in a joint press conference with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Netanyahu repeated Israel's demands to secure an end to the war, the release of all hostages, and the destruction of Hamas. He also urged civilians living in the northern city to heed Israeli advice and follow evacuation orders to, quote, get out of harm's way. The Israeli premier accused Hamas of allegedly preventing civilians from leaving the city to use them as human shields. He also stated, without presenting evidence, that Hamas militants are shooting them in the legs to force them to stay in combat zones. The Israeli prime minister also defended his country's attacks in Qatar last week, which much of the international community slammed as illegal. Netanyahu asserted that it's enshrined within international law to protect yourself, even beyond your borders, to eliminate threats harbored in other countries.
You don't have such sovereignty when you are effectively giving a base to terrorists and a place where they can ply their gruesome trade. So it's the right of every country under international law to defend itself beyond its borders against those who would kill their citizens, murder them en masse.
He also criticized the wave of condemnation, stating that Israeli attacks in Europe in the 1970s did not generate, quote, a great cry of wrongdoing to these countries.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer condemned what he called dangerous comments made by Elon Musk at Saturday's anti-immigration rally in London. Musk addressed the crowd at the Unite the Kingdom demonstration organised by far-right campaigner Tommy Robinson. He told protesters, quote, "Violence is coming to you, and you either fight back or you die." Police said 26 officers were injured, 4 seriously, as protesters tried to breach lines separating them from a smaller anti-racist counter-demonstration. Ed Davey, who leads the Liberal Democrats, the third largest party in Parliament, urged Starmer and Conservative opposition leader Kemi Badenoch to join him in condemning Musk's attempt to sow discord and incite violence. This is not the first time Musk, a former ally of US President Donald Trump, has supported far-right figures in Europe, including Robinson and the Alternative for Germany party. A decision on the 2040 climate targets will be delayed, diplomats have said. 27 environment ministers are set to meet in Brussels on Thursday, but according to EU officials, member states need more time to mull the issue. The European Commission is proposing a 90% reduction in CO2 emissions, but France is pushing for the decision to be taken in October by the heads of state and government. However, several experts warn for the consequences of delaying the decision.
Certainly, we see that for now, France is in a camp with a lot of Eurosceptic governments, notably Hungary and Slovakia, that just use indeed the European Council and the unanimity to blackmail on their demands. And some of the demands might go beyond the climate debate even. It could then go into the rule of law, it could go into more money that they need, and then it becomes really a dangerous game.
On paper, adoption by the 27 ministers should be straightforward, requiring only a qualified majority. Germany and the Netherlands back the objective, while France, Italy and several Central European countries remain more cautious. However, this is not just a political matter but also an industrial one, as companies urgently need a clear and predictable path forward.
What we need to do is agree the direction and decide how we are going to get there. What are the right policies to do that? How can we really drive the acceleration and the scale-up of the technologies that we need? At this point, it shouldn't be a fight over the targets. It should be a real discussion on what are the right enabling policies to unlock the investment that Europe needs. And fundamentally, this is a conversation about investment.
The EU's credibility as a global leader in climate action is on the line. Any delay on European level would send a concerning signal to international partners ahead of COP30, set to take place in Brazil in November.
British royals are set to receive US President Donald Trump, who is visiting the United Kingdom this Tuesday for a historic second state visit. The visit will include a state banquet hosted by King Charles III at Windsor Castle and a bilateral meeting with Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Trump and First Lady Melania are expected to arrive on Tuesday evening and depart Thursday in what will see the UK deploy one of its biggest security operations. Their visit comes after an invitation was formally extended in February to Trump, with Starmer presenting a signed letter from King Charles. During the visit, Trump will inspect the Guard of Honor and pay a private visit to the grave of late Queen Elizabeth II, who received him during his first state visit in June 2019. While the U.S. leader will be wined and dined by the royal family, senior officials on both sides will be fleshing out matters on bilateral issues and cooperation behind the scenes. The US and UK are expected to announce agreements on technology and civil nuclear energy.
US President Donald Trump has suggested that a deal with China has been reached over TikTok to keep the platform running in the United States. Trump teased the news in a post on his own social media platform, Truth Social, on Monday, and opted to keep an element of mystery around the deal. Trump wrote, quote, "A deal was also reached on a certain company that young people in our country very much want to save." TikTok was initially shut down as U.S. lawmakers expressed concern that the popular app was being used to retrieve personal information from its users, which then gets stored with its Chinese parent company ByteDance. Washington also accused the Chinese Communist Party of having access to this data, citing a major security concern. The app was given permission to operate so long as an American company purchases its U.S. subsidiary. Trump said the deal was reached as U.S. and Chinese delegations met in Europe to discuss a trade deal as the threat of crippling sanctions continues to loom. He also noted that he will be speaking with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping later this week, insisting that the relationship is very strong.
The 15-year-old Owen Cooper became the youngest male actor to win an Emmy Award for his performance in Adolescence, a show that brought home a total of 8 Emmys. It was not the only record-winning moment at the 77th edition of the Emmy Awards on Sunday. The studio made Emmy history with its 13 wins. The series came into the evening having won 9 Emmys already during last weekend's Creative Arts ceremony. On Sunday night, it added 4 more, which all went to Seth Rogen. And The Pit took the top drama prize, beating Severance, with Noah Weil claiming his first Emmy for lead actor. The evening also brought wins for Jean Smart, winning her 4th Emmy for Best Actress in a Comedy for Hacks and 7th Emmy overall, as well as Stephen Colbert, who took home an award for the first time for Best Talk Show.